Hey everybody, it's Alex Meller at Capnion here. Retrieval augmented generation, which is a particular way of building an AI application, is my big theme for this week. I had an overview yesterday. Tomorrow I'm going to talk a lot about the business side of why do you do it, why you persuade people to do it, what is the value that this could produce for a large corporation in more detail, and do a little bit of exciting futurism. I'd like to talk today about vector embeddings and vector databases. These technologies don't get brought up on social media even 1% as often as LLM, but I think it's worth thinking of them as two tools that are often going to travel together in your toolbox if you're approaching certain problems intelligently. I found this an especially difficult video to make because this is a technical topic, and I think it's really, really cool, which is a recipe for running out of the 10 minutes LinkedIn will let you have. So I'm going to make some extra studious effort to boil this down. Maybe you're an executive, maybe you're an engineer. Where do these things come up in my blocking and tackling day to day that I'm going to really appreciate having them and knowing about them? So as I discussed yesterday, retrieval augmented generation is this approach to creating an application where an AI is going to act like an expert and provide you useful information according to your natural language queries. What's good about it is that we're not asking the LM to be an expert itself so that it can hallucinate and lie to us, but rather this application is supposed to dig through other documents, and then the LM is going to read and summarize essentially the right documents for us and get us an answer. Bonus, it can actually tell us where the answer came from. Probably the LLM is not the thing that figures out what the right document is. And these things are most useful if there's a lot of documents beyond what a human really wants to sift through for themselves. So one technology that you can use for this other part where you find the right documents is a vector embedding, and then a vector database is a special database for handling the output of these things. I always like to give you guys a chance to question me. If you don't like me, if you're in the documentation for developers around the ChatGPT API, it is pretty open that it is very commonplace that this other technology comes up adjacent to LLM. So, there's a kind of hint that this company is talking all the time about this other product in their documentation, and it makes a lot of sense. It's real. I think there's an emerging best practice here. A vector embedding, to put it a very simple way, and there's different kinds of vector embeddings, some are fancy, some are less fancy. I'm going to take some text, like a document. I'm going to feed it into this thing, and it's going to give me a long vector of numbers between 0 and 1. That's not very cool by itself, but depending, I'm going to get some extra properties. And the most basic extra property is that documents on a similar topic are going to have vectors that are close together. And so this is very, very powerful because natural language is kind of squishy. It doesn't have anything low-hanging that's quantitative or geometric about it. It can be subjective and challenging to say what is similar to something else. And this vector embedding is just going to recast these documents as totally quantitative information where we can now be very straightforward about what is similar to what else. These have been around a while. They didn't make the splash ChatGPT made, but people have been talking about them. They've gotten a lot better, and they're pretty good. So where does this come up in my application? I have this stack of documents, right? It's supposed to be my knowledge base. I can just do something like feed them all through this vector embedding. So now there are these long vectors of numbers between 0 and 1. I'm going to put them in this special database. And this is an important crossroads, especially for the executive crowd. This is a weird, special kind of database optimized for this. You might not want to use your old-timey SQL database for this. It's not optimized for it. They're relatively newfangled, so you can get into, well, this is a great vector database, but they want me to use it through this web API, and that's a crappy situation for me for data privacy reasons. So you have to buy one more database, and I don't suggest you try to skimp on that part. It is kind of just one more database, but then you really need it. Okay, so anyway, you have this vector embedding. You took all your documents and you mapped them to this other space. You put them in this special database that's optimized for this. You can query that database. And what you're going to start with is, I have a query about, I would like to know about company practices about wearing jeans on Friday. That's going to go through that vector embedding. And if everything is set up right, the vector that comes out is going to capture the topic of queries about jeans, queries about how to dress. If I go to that vector database and say, give me all the documents that are particularly close to this vector I'm giving you, well, what's supposed to happen, and it's gotten, just really stunningly good in my opinion, I'm going to get all the documents about dress codes and jeans and what people wear on Friday. And if I set things up right, ChatGPT or similar is just going to read those and answer my question. This is really cool. I'm trying to convince you this week this is really cool. Going back to this RAG idea, retrieval augmented generation. Well, now I'm not going to get a hallucination because I'm actually getting directly from these documents. I know the provenance. The LLM is playing a really crucial role of, if 10 documents come back, and I don't want to read, like, I could find 10 documents on the dress code and go through all this blah, blah, blah. Really, I just need to know if people are going to look at me ugly for wearing jeans on Friday. These sorts of things come up quite a bit in this AI development. And this vector database, along with the vector embedding, it's a really, really powerful way to sift everything just enough to make what's left amenable to an LLM that's just going to easily read it and answer my question. Probably, hopefully, in the correct way if I kind of set all these tubes up. All right, so what should you take away from this video? There's this other technology that doesn't get talked about 1% as much as LLM on social media. It is also very high-tech. It has a lot of family resemblance in terms of its architecture to LLM. But it's something that comes up in a lot of kind of proto-best practices adjacent to LLM. And as I've discussed elsewhere, and I'm going to keep saying, you don't want to do AI. You want to accomplish something. You don't want to do LLM either. You want to accomplish something specific. And these two ingredients, I think, fit together really well, and they're really powerful. So A, you want to know that that thing is there. And if you're shopping for LLM, go shopping for a vector database too, because hopefully you're going to find out that you need it and you want it. And if you don't, that might be worse for you. All right. So I hope this is helping. I'm going to talk tomorrow about retrieval augmented generation. Really fits onto what I think are some really fascinating, universal, but also kind of prosaic and eternal problems big corporations have with just knowledge base about how to be a big corporation. And I have this future word, Rhizocorp, I'm going to attach to this. The potential to move the needle, especially at a really big company with this kind of stuff, is really huge, I think. Much more than you might naively expect. So stay tuned, everybody.